Hello. My name's Jack, and today we'll be going through dLive RackUltra FX. Predominantly, we're going to be looking at the pitch effects, and we're going to be looking at MIDI integration, what you can do using MIDI to control those pitch effects. We'll just give everyone a little minute to get connected and get in. Do say hello in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. Let me know that you can see me. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be going through the RackUltra FX, particularly the pitch effects and how you control them using MIDI. If anyone has any questions, do put them in the chat straight away. I'll be answering questions predominantly on things that are to do with RackUltra FX and to do with the pitch effects. If we have time, we can also have a look at some other questions. So, what are RackUltra FX? RackUltra FX are a collection of processing effects available for dLives with the RackUltra FX card. The RackUltra FX card is available as an upgrade for all current dLives in the field and is shipping as standard with new dLives that are purchased now. This gives you an additional 8 stereo effects engines with 8 new effects engines. Ian says, hope you're well, audio and video is fine. That is fantastic. So let's have a look at what we'll be talking about today, and we're going to start with Vocal Tuner. So if I bring up my dLive, we're going to have a look at Vocal Tuner. So there are 2 types of Vocal Tuner available on dLive from version 2. We have Vocal Tuner. This is our standard one. Vocal Tuner is designed to be used anywhere where you want really natural sounding pitch correction on a vocal. This would be predominantly aimed at people who maybe don't want people to know or don't want it to be sort of front and center in the mix that they're using vocal tuning. This is designed to sound as natural as possible. There's also another RackUltra effect called Vocal Gridder, which we can have a quick look at here. Vocal Gridder uses a completely different algorithm. This is designed for those really hard and fast pitch corrections that you might find typically on EDM music, that kind of thing. So if you want to sound like T-Pain, you maybe would use Vocal Gridder. If you want something more natural, we'd look at Vocal Tuner. What we're going to look at today, though, is how we control these using MIDI. So let's have a little look at my laptop. So I'm going to be using Reaper for this session. The reason we choose to use Reaper is anyone can download the demo and have a play with it. It's not necessarily the software that we'd expect people to use. If they were doing this for real out on a show, you might want to use something like Ableton or potentially another DAW such as Logic or Pro Tools. But Reaper is really good for these kind of demonstrations because anyone can download it and play along. So what do we need to do to get Reaper talking to the Vocal Tuner? The first thing we need to do is to connect the MIDI control app. So I've got this downloaded on my laptop already. You can find this on our website. I'm going to type in MIDI and open up the Alan Heath MIDI control app. Let's see. So MIDI control looks a little bit like this. And what we find in MIDI control is from the drop down, we should be able to see any mix racks that are connected to the network that the laptop is connected to. In this case, I've got an Ethernet dongle. I've got the IP address set statically on my laptop in the right IP range, or in the same subnet as my dLive. My dLive is running a default IP address of 192.168.1.70. And because it's already in the right subnet and already in a compatible IP address, I can choose it from the list. I can press connect. It'll say connected at the bottom, and I have 2 activity boxes on the right hand side. One is for MIDI going into the console, and one is for MIDI coming from the console. And I can check that my 1500 that I have here in the studio is connected. Just by moving one of the faders, we can see an activity light on the left hand side that shows that MIDI is being transmitted from the 1500 into my laptop. Now, let's have a look at what I've got set up here. So I've got some audio, I've got sort of like a backing track, I've got 2 vocals, they're all in stereo and they're all being sent out to a Dante card, and that is going into my 1500. I won't play the music just yet, or I won't put it on the stream just yet, but I will play into the dLive just to check that that's working. There we go, we can see the dLive responding. Perfect. So by default with Vocal Tuner, let me get this up full screen for a second, we've got a few different ways of interacting with it. We can have the unit follow the global key. In fact, Eric has just mentioned this on the Facebook chat, saying that he has used soft keys to control the global key setting on the surface. So there are a few different ways of doing this. You can use actions, you can use soft keys, or you can use MIDI being sent from an external source, and that's what we're going to look at today. So what we can do is run Vocal Tuner completely independently on its own, and in this case I can choose the key and scale from the menu over here, and I can choose the key and scale that the music is in. I can have the Vocal Tuner follow the global key. So in this case, if I set the global key to C, you'll see that that's gone to C minor, and if I put it back into F sharp major, you'll see that the Vocal Tuner has followed the global key. And I can set the global key from the screen. I can use soft keys. It's embedded in scene, so each scene will update the global key, but I can also use MIDI from an external device to set the global key. And this is really useful if you've maybe got a control pad. Perhaps you've got something like like I do here, where I've got a DAW and you've got artists that are playing to click. It means you can use your DAW to send those commands to the console. So let's have a little look at that. If I push this, you can sort of see what's going on the console still. And I'm going to create a new MIDI track. Well, I'll create a new track first. And on my new track, I'm going to insert MIDI item. And I'm going to make sure that it's not going to loop. Perfect. And I've got, I can set notes here. So sending notes to Vocal Tuner will cause it to snap to those notes. But what I want to do in this case is actually send CC messages to be able to control the global key. Now, to find out what these commands are, what you need to do is have a look at our the MIDI spec that's available online, the MIDI over TCP protocol document. And to set the global key, we are going to have a look right down here. We've got set UFX global key and set UFX global scale. Oh, you can't quite see that actually. There we go. Set UFX global key and set UFX global scale. Now, the way we program this in an external DAW, the first bit is simply the MIDI channel. So in this case, it's the global channel for the console. So if we have a look on Director, just so you can see it a little bit more easily, the global channel for the console are these ones here, these main MIDI channels. So the default channel in the template show file is 12. So what we can do is go into Reaper, and we're going to set the key. So the key is a control change on 0C. So 0C in hex is going to be 12 in decimal. So we can go to Reaper. I can choose CC message 12. I'm going to set this to channel 12 as well. So I'm going to be sending to my main MIDI channel. And actually, let's do it as let's type it in instead. So we're going to do position is the time. So it's going to be a control change. The position, let's just do it at 1 second to make it easy. The channel is 12. The type is a control change. The controller is also 12 in this case. Why are you not letting me? There we go, channel 12, CC 12, control 12, and the value. So the value we're going to look up from this table. So you can see the global key table is down here. We're going to zoom in so you can see. And these are the values that we will enter to set our key. So in this case, this particular bit of music is in F sharp, I believe. We'll come back to this, but F sharp. So F sharp is going to be a 06. I'll have a look in Reaper. I'm going to set this to 6. Now, currently on the dLive screen, we're already in F sharp, so I'll put it in something else just so you can see it change. Let's put it in D major. And so you can see that this is currently following the global key, and the global key is currently being set up here. In fact, let's leave that open so you can see. So what else do we need to do? We need to make sure that we're sending that MIDI out to our MIDI driver. So I'm going to go to routing, and I'm going to set my output to MIDI control. Let's give that a go and see what happens. Let's see if that works first time. Position 720. So it's gonna fire off around here somewhere. That's fine. And so what we should see is it changed to F sharp around second number 7. And if it doesn't, we'll do some investigation as to why it hasn't. Okay, so that hasn't fired first time, so let's see what I've done wrong. That all looks correct. Square, value 6, channel 12. That is all correct. So let's have a little look at routing out to MIDI control 1. That's correct. Off value nothing, 12. That should work. Let's set the position right at the start to make it a bit easier to see. Just put value in here. Have I got 2? Let's just delete this MIDI item and try again. So we're going to insert new MIDI item. And I'm going to do channel 12. And if we have a look in here, let's get rid of all of these. And set that value to, what did I want? I wanted F sharp, which is 6. There we go. So if you see, as soon as I started playing that, snap to F sharp. And if I just duplicate this, and maybe just put it on a little bit. If I wanted it to go to C, I could get it to go to C by pressing 0. So these values here, that's 6 and that's 0, I'm getting those from the MIDI TCP protocol document. So I'm deciding what key I want my global key to snap to by going there. And everyone's telling me it fired while I wasn't looking. Cool, excellent, that's what we like. So let's just run that again, and we should see it alternating between those. I'm going to do it right at the start. Perfect. So that's how you can automate changing the global key. So the global key, if I bring my dLive screen up, so the global key, anything that's set to follow the global key will change when you fire that MIDI. So if I go and set my other tuner up as well, we can see that that's then following those changes to the global key. Now, that's great. Oh, let's see, we've got some of the messages coming in. That's great, but we might want to control each unit individually. Now, we're not likely to want to change the key of each unit individually, but we might very well want to change some of the other parameters, maybe the correction, retune, and we can also give it a specific note to snap to as well if we want to. So let's have a little look at how that might work. So if I put my laptop up again, let's stop that playing and get rid of that MIDI that we've just created. So we can have it follow the global key, but we can also control individual parameters on Vocal Tuner as well if we want to. We can click Show Routing up here and click on MIDI Setup tab, and we can choose different parameters to have different CC control messages. So each UFX unit has a MIDI channel, so in this case, channel 1. Any note on, note off messages sent to Vocal Tuner will cause it to snap to that note. And then we control other parameters here using CC messages. So I've got retune here set up on 10. Let's also put bypass on 1. And go back to our front panel. And let's see if we can get picture in picture again. And put you on the right unit. So let's see if we can automate the retune speed. So the retune speed is the middle control. The top control is the correction speed, or the correction amount rather. The middle control is the retune speed, and the bottom control is the transition speed. So I'll have to definitely go back and check what I set those CC messages to. But if we go ahead and create a new MIDI item, turn the loop off. We can set our controls from the bottom here. So let's choose, I think 10 was my retune speed. I'll go back and check it in a minute. And you can either set individual values or you can even draw them in. Now, I'm going to draw it in just so you can see the control moving. Obviously, we wouldn't use this for a real show. That would be very silly. But we can, oh, I've done that with all channels, actually. Let's set this to channel 1. So it's just going to fire towards that single vocal tuner. And we'll just draw in a pattern that you can see nice and easily. Beautiful drawing there. Great. And we'll fire that off. Now, I haven't set any of the routings. I don't know if that's going to work first time, but it is. So what's happening here is we're firing different control values at controller 10, right? So that's oscillating very badly from my bad drawing. And if we bring up the full dLive screen, you can see that the retune speed there is moving around, and that's moving around as those MIDI commands are being sent to that CC controller. Now, you can choose any CC message you like. So I could go into routing, MIDI setup, and I could instead turn that one off and have the transition be the one that is that's being fed from CC10. And obviously you can control multiple ones at the same time, but that's how you control the individual parameters on Vocal Tuner. All of the control knobs, the ones that don't have defined values, they'll just go from 0 to 127. And if we have a look at our MIDI protocol document again, we also have things like the bypass setting. So let's have a look at bypass. Oh, actually, we could do this a slightly different way. If we have a look at director. What's really common is for people to put Vocal Tuner into bypass at the end of songs. So what we could do in that case is go to our MIDI setup. Bypass I've got set up on CC1. And you can currently see that we're unbypassed. If I bring Reaper up, we'll do picture in picture again. Let's mute this for a second. And we'll create a new track. I'm going to call this UFX1 bypass. Oh, and try not to delete it as I press enter. And we can insert a new MIDI item. And for this MIDI item, we're going to be targeting CC1. I think this is a bit easier to do from this view. So we're going to do control change. It's going to be on channel 1 because we're going to target the first UFX unit. we're going to go to controller 1, and we're going to set it to a big value. We're going to set it to a value 127, add, and then we'll leave a gap, and we'll set it to a small value like 1, press add. Okay. Oh, those have all added as notes, that's not very handy. Let's get rid of both of those. Change you to control change, channel 1, value, square, and I want you to be control number 1. Channel 1, controller 1, big value. Channel 1, small value. Change the position, give that a big position difference. And so what we should be able to see here, if I haven't messed it up in some way, which definitely isn't a given, is we should be able to trigger the bypass going on and off at different points. I might have I've selected times that are outside of my zones. If I go to track, unloop, and check that they are now inside. If I set the first position really low, the second position slightly higher, what we should get is the bypass going in and out. And again, when we work out that I've not done it right, we can investigate why. So we've got that setting to channel 1, that's correct. My loop doesn't start early enough by the looks of it, so let's try that. Let's move this position up to 1. And move this position up to like 5 or 4 or something. Okay, there we go. So we've got the first one firing a high and the second one firing low. So that's not currently showing up on here. So let's have a little look at what we've got going on here. MIDI setup, channel 1, bypass on CC1. Let's see if it will unbypass me. Perhaps MIDI channel, maybe CC1's not a good one to use. Maybe we try something a bit higher, like 20. Try 20, and we'll put 20 in here as well. Parameter 20, and then what we will do is we will change this to 20. Give that a minute. Channel 1 is set there. It's because that isn't routed there. So what we should see now is it toggling the bypass on and off. Well, that's not very handy, is it? We can go to another example in a minute if I can't get this one to work live on the stream. But what we can use is different controls to control different. There we go. Different controls to control different parameters on the tuner, and we can automate that from Reaper, from another DAW, from Ableton, from something like that. And you can use these not only to control the different controls like transition, retune, and correction, but we can even give it individual notes to try and hit. So we'll try and do this with a little bit of audio. Let's see. So we will turn those off. Make sure that's unmuted. You should hear some music, not very loud to start with. And as you can hear, we've got this lovely vocal that's really well tuned.
Was the power that you why did you keep me there? Why did you keep
Now this is in F sharp, so let's start by putting it in the right key and scale.
did you keep me there? Was the power that you
And we can leave it in auto, and it's pretty good in auto. Like, it works in auto, more or less.
keep me
But we can also send note messages to it to snap to specific notes. So let's have a look at how we might do that. Get rid of these two. And we can insert a new MIDI item. And what we can use is we can draw in note on, note off messages to get it to snap to individual notes. So we'll just have a look and see that we're all connected. At the moment we're not. So let's have a look at what's going on there. So we'll just make sure we're unmuted. There we go. So let's bring some audio back in.
Why did you keep me there?
And you can hear as I'm dragging my mouse up and down, that it's snapping to that individual note.
Why did you keep me there?
Just trying to find the note.
Power that you Why did you keep me there? Was the power that you Why did
So it's going to probably be something like this.
Was the power that you Why did you keep me there? Was the power that you Why did you keep me there?
And we can use this to get it to snap to individual notes. Now, it's obviously a bit easier to do on stream if I use the wrong notes, because you can hear that really obviously.
Was the power that you
So let's pause that for a second. Does anyone have any questions about Vocal Tuner or what I'm doing with this MIDI at the moment before we continue on? So what we've looked at so far is how we can control the individual key and scale of a unit. We've had a look at the global key and how we can set that from MIDI. And we've also had a look at how we can get the tuner to snap to individual notes from something from a DAW such as Reaper, but we could also use something like Ableton or indeed Logic. Jim says, if you've got several vocalists, can you set up a user-defined key to set the key across all of the tuners at once? So there's a few different ways that we can. Look at doing this. You can save it in a scene, and in the scene, you can just recall those parameters. So if you have a look in other effects global key scale, so what you could do is have them all follow the global key, and you can recall that in that key here in the scene. You can also do it using the unit safe recall filter here for each individual unit, and then attach that to a soft key. There are also some other soft key options. If we have a look here, and we have a look at so what you could do is set the scene to recall by using the scene controls and recall that specific scene from a soft key like this. We've also got some controls in actions. So what we can do in actions is set things like the bypass. So you can choose to have it stop tuning or begin tuning. But in terms of actually setting the key would be something you would do by using the filters in the scene. But those are the different sort of ways you can control those parameters on the console. So you can use keys to control to recall the scene. You can use keys. You use actions to recall the bypass if you want to, or you can use MIDI from an external device if you choose to. So one of the other things that we've got available as part of the pitch tools available with RackUltra FX and things we can control with MIDI is the MIDI harmonizer. So we'll have a quick look at MIDI harmonizer. MIDI harmonizer allows you to send note on, note off messages to create harmonies at specific intervals on specific notes. You can use it in monophonic mode, where it will take the last sent note on message, and you can use the glide control to have it smoothly transition from one to another. Or using polyphonic mode, you can have up to 4 voices of harmony that are controlled via MIDI, just with note on, note off messages. So let's have a little look at how this might work. If I go to my harmony demo and show you my laptop. So what we've got here is a selection of note on, note off messages that we have set up with a little bit of audio. So I'll just play it dry.
Solitary is the voice that
Still got the tuner on.
speaks out into darkness. Tells it that it met a girl, that convinces it the God is an artist.
So by sending just the vocal to MIDI harmonizer and sending those note on, note off messages, we can put different voices, different generated voices at specific notes at specific times. So if I maybe show both at the same time, I've currently got these note on, note off messages at the bottom. These are going to channel 3, and I've set up on my MIDI harmonizer. My MIDI setup here, I've got this MIDI channel 3 set up. So it will respond to note messages on MIDI channel 3. So let's have a little listen to what that sounds like with that MIDI going to it as well.
Solitary is the voice that speaks out into darkness. Tells it that it met a girl, that convinces it the God is an artist.
So what you're seeing here, at the bottom is the detected note,
Speaks out into
and at the top you're seeing the notes that are being generated, triggered from the MIDI from the laptop.
tells it that it met a girl, that convinces it the God is an artist.
Now we've got some other controls on this unit as well. We have the ability to add reverb in the unit. We can add some chorus, and we can also use the pitch variation and note tracking to control how natural or unnatural this sounds. So with the pitch variation very low, it sounds very robotic, everything is perfectly on those notes, and note tracking tracks the natural vibrato of the singer and moves the harmony around that as well. So otherwise it would sound a little bit more like a vocoder. We can have a little listen to what that sounds like with those all the way off for something that sounds more like an effect than other people singing.
Solitary is the voice that speaks out into darkness. Tells it that it met a girl, that convinces it the God is an artist.
And that's MIDI Harmonizer. Does anyone have any questions about anything we've discussed so far, or indeed any other questions on RackUltraFX? And I've been more than happy to do my best to answer them. I haven't had an awful lot going on the chat, so do let me know if there's anything you'd like to see a little bit more of, or anything you'd like a further discussion of. There are a couple of questions I've seen that are not to do with RackUltra FX, and we will be talking just about RackUltra FX in this particular live stream. If you do have any other questions about any other product, or indeed anything else on dLive, we're always available by going to our support portal, which is support.alan-heath.com, or you can send us an email at support@alan-heath.com. That would be the best way to get support for anything that isn't specifically dLive V2.0 related. If not, we may think about bringing this stream to an end, but I'm hoping you found that informative. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you would like to ask any questions after the stream, then it would be going to the same place. That's support.alan-heath.com. Questions about will it be available on other products? This is something that we've just bought to dLive, so at the moment it's going to be a dLive exclusive. That may very well change in the future, but at the current time this is something that is just available for dLive. Again, if you didn't catch the start of the stream or you're unaware, the new RackUltra FX available for dLive work with the RackUltra FX card. This is fitted as standard to all new dLives being manufactured now, and is available as an upgrade for all dLives that are currently in the field. It's something you can purchase from your distributor in your local territory, and it fits to an internal slot in the mix rack. It does not require the use of one of the I/O card slots. I see Aldo's joined the chat. Hi Aldo, thank you for joining in. I think we're just about starting to wrap up, unless I get any other questions sneak in at the last moment. But thanks ever so much for joining. I really appreciate the time. Again, if there is anything at all that you'd like to ask us, like to tell us, or need any assistance with, you know how to get hold of us. Thanks ever so much for joining the stream on RackUltra FX and the pitch effects. Till next time, thanks ever so much. Goodbye.